I'm Farid Poursoltani of the Electrical Joint Training Committee, and you're listening to the Tools of the Trade Monthly Toolbox Talk.
Welcome, please welcome
to another episode of the Tools of the Trade Podcast, your number one construction industry resource. Hear conversations with industry professionals to get the tools, stories, and advice that you need to set your career on fire. You're now streaming the Tools of the Trade Podcast.
What's up, guys? Before I introduce today's guest, I would love to introduce today's sponsor, the partner of the monthly Toolbox Talks, the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum. And this is a message for employers. Over the past 20 years, the Canadian Apprenticeship Forum has undertaken a broad range of research projects that align with both national and regional areas of interest, including completion rates, barriers to apprenticeship training, employer engagement, the impact of technology, return on training investment, and youth parent perceptions of careers and skilled trades. Amazing stuff. CAF have developed a number of employer-specific resources that are available for distribution, including an introduction to apprenticeship training, an employer handbook to share the business case for apprenticeship training, as well as employer insights and a series of one-pagers designed to help employers think through the creation of their own apprenticeship program. CAF also just launched a quarterly newsletter for skilled trades employers. If this sounds valuable to you, if this is stuff that you would like to have, you can access these valuable resources on their website at caf-fca.org. That's caf-fca.org to get yours today. What's going on, friends? Welcome to the Tools of the Trade Monthly Toolbox Talk June edition. This is episode number 6. I am your host, Colin, and in these segments, I put a more granular focus on developing the industry through the lens of field staff, educators, training bodies, etc., with questions that are based around a day in their shoes and how we can go about making the construction community stronger while breaking down barriers. If you haven't already, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Tools Podcast and look out for who I am having on the podcast next so that you can send me your questions and I can get them answered for you. Today's guest is the Director of Programs at the Electrical Joint Training Committee in BC, Farid Poursoltani. Farid is a fellow electrician, which naturally led us down some paths about the pride we take in nice conduit installations, but we focused heavily on the following areas. How does someone become an electrical apprentice, union versus non-union? How does coaching and mentoring fit into an apprenticeship? What is a pre-apprenticeship and why is it so important? And how we can help influence the next generation of trades. To get in touch with Farid, head over to toolspodcast.com/June, where I've linked to all of the places you can say hello. And for more information about the EJTC, you can visit them on the web at ejtc.org. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for my friend, Farid Poursoltani. Farid, thank you so much for joining me on Tools of the Trade Monthly Toolbox Talk.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. You know, it's interesting to see somebody like yourself who's come from the field and gone into the training side of things, like we were briefly chatting about before we got onto the podcast here. So what's going on in your world these days? How's COVID affected the training world? What are you up to? Are you in the office? How's things going?
Yeah, COVID definitely affected the training world quite a bit, but I think just talking to everyone in the industry, everyone changed quite quickly. We all jumped on it fairly quickly. You know, we got our students online within 3 days, so that was really neat. And you know, we reached out to other training centers to make sure what are they doing, what are we doing, share some information. I'm working from the office, but I can promise you the social distancing, there's only, usually one or two of us here, only because I got 2 young children at home. I couldn't work at home. It was just not possible. So I just come to the office and I'm only 7 minutes away. So
you're not one of those guys with the kids in the back of the conference call.
No, I can't. I feel bad saying no to my daughter and then the screaming happening. So no, I couldn't do it. I tried for about a week because I came back from Seattle right when that whole thing went down, and so I had to do 2 weeks of self isolation. I tried for a week, and then by that point we had mobilized everyone.
Right.
So I was like, okay, might as well just come to the office because I couldn't get anything done. But it's been good, yeah.
So it's May 12th right now, and I know here on the East Coast in Toronto, things are starting to open back up slowly. I know construction is opening up in phases. What are you seeing over there in terms of construction opening back up?
Same thing. I mean, my father and my brother are still in tools. My brother's an electrician. I talk to him quite frequently. I mean, he says most construction sites are still going. Like BC never shut down construction. Certain sites obviously were shut down because of safety issues, but for the most part, they're all running. There's more PPE required. You need more safety paperwork in order to get the work done, but it's all there.
Yeah.
So it's all happening. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but that's digressing here. I want to know, like, tell people where you're from, what company you represent, and what exactly
Yeah.
you do.
Okay. So I work for the Electrical Joint Training Committee. It's in Port Coquitlam. We are the training center for the IBW Local 213 and the Electrical Contractors Association of BC. And our area is Lower Mainland all the way to the Okanagan. So I'm the director of programs. I really take care of all of our journey person upgrading courses, a lot of our projects, anything that's provincially funded or federally funded, like UTIP, I might have mentioned to you. So I take care of a lot of those, and every other small thing in the office, IT related, operational, anything that I need to assist with. Phil Davis, our managing director, usually comes to my table.
Very cool.
Yeah,
And you come from the field, correct?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm an electrician by trade. Yes.
When did you get into it? Was it straight out of high school?
No, I actually went to university at first for 2.5 years. I realized quickly it wasn't for me. At the time, I didn't have my mindset for it. So I joined the trades in 2005 at a controls company, and that was basically the start of it. But I was working open shop the first year and a half. The company joined the union, and that was the best thing that happened in my career. So I joined the union. 2012, I think it was. I walked into the training center. I was a foreman, young and frustrated, and I wanted some change, and I wanted some automation, and I wanted some change. And I walked into Andy Cleven's office. He was our managing director at the time, or training director. After I bumped my fist on the table, and he told me, "Why don't you join and start helping us develop something in automation?" Because I was working in the HVAC controls world. So I started there part-time for 3 years. At that point, I left the tools, I think, after 10 years or so, 10, 12 years, I think. And since then, it's been 5 years of full-time at EJTC. It's been quite a fun 8 years, I tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been fun. A lot of change, a lot of new programs, and we've been growing. The industry's growing. We got 900 apprentices. It's amazing. It's really neat.
So, what does a day in your shoes look like at work? Like, what do you do typically from the second you get into the office till the minute you leave? What does it look like?
Honestly, every day is different. It really is. There's a lot of teamwork that has to happen for most of our projects. When Phil came in, he really made it an open communication group mentality when it comes to dealing with our work, which is quite different before. So a lot of my work is just working with our curriculum manager, working with our administration manager on projects, whether, again, I mentioned, too federally funded. But right now we're working on a digital campaign for women in the trades. That takes quite a bit of my time. I'm also the director of workforce development for a joint venture company we got, Mentorship Matters at Skill Plan. So, customer relations, contracts, sales, a lot of different things. Every day is really different, honestly, based on what's coming and what's going.
Very cool.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
A lot of emails. Does that help? That's usually.
Yeah. You know what? It seems as though you hop from conference call to email to conference call, and then 3 o'clock rolls around. It's like, okay, it's time to get to work. Like,
that's right. You know that. That's right. Nighttime's the best time to get work done. That's the only way.
yeah, you know what? I'm more of a morning guy. Actually, it was funny because yesterday I was feeling like completely run down. I went to bed at like 7 o'clock p.m. and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I crushed like 2-3 hours of workout in the morning. It's quiet. Nobody's around.
Good for you.
I think the morning's my new thing.
Well, see, I have no choice. My daughter wakes me up that early, but usually I can't move. I'm just going for my coffee.
Yeah. You know what I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, which is something that I didn't think about prior to this call that's coming to mind now, is in the media and kind of the rumblings in the field and office is that we're heading into a skilled trade labor shortage. And we see that on the front page of newspapers. And I know that when I had my small electrical company, it was always a struggle to try and find good workers to come and join us. And I don't know if that was because we were a small company or because we were marketing ourselves incorrectly, but from the training side of things, and you're dealing with a lot of apprentices, do you notice that there is definitely a decline in interest in skilled trades?
100%. 100%. So I've been blessed because of Mentorship Matters. I travel Canada and United States before COVID quite frequently. I worked with different international unions, different local unions, and depending on the trade, I mean, not to say they're all different, but depending on the trade, they're definitely struggling. Certain trades, as they call themselves, dirty trades, like if you're bricklayers per se versus electrical plumbing, they're struggling to find new candidates. I don't know if it's just the numbers aren't there, or there's just more opportunities out there. So one of the ways we're trying to mitigate that is we implement that Mentorship Matters program. We want to change the culture of the trades that you and I know from the field, which is not always pleasant.
Right.
We want to create some communication, create a partnership, a professionalism. So I think that would eventually help to really excite the next generation, the younger people, to actually come join the skilled trades, the way you and I did at one point.
Yeah.
The excitement. Yeah.
Do you think that it is just more opportunity? I've never thought about it that way, to be honest.
I don't know. I think about it this way, and it's my own personal opinion. You think today you can grab your phone and go on 15 different apps to look for jobs, and it wasn't really quite like that 20 years ago. I mean, yeah, we had apps, but it wasn't extensive like the way it is today. So if you have all those different opportunities, plus now people are making money off YouTube and Instagram and every other way that they can.
Yeah.
Maybe skilled trades is not the first one that you think about. Also, I think we need to change our mentality. I think we got to think about skilled trades like a profession and start marketing it that way to the youth so that they don't think it's a job. It's not a second choice. It should just be a career. For me, for example, my electrical ticket ended up paying for my bachelor, and that's pretty amazing. And my wages now will hopefully pay for my master's down the road. And I never had student loans because I didn't have to worry about that. The trades cost $1,500 to go to school. It's nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's if you don't get a grant. It seems like there's quite a few grants out there these days as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's crazy. So I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit. You were beating your head against the wall. You were a frustrated foreman. You were thinking of leaving the field. What was like kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of deciding to get into the training side of things?
I wasn't looking to leave the field. I was just frustrated because I was getting all these apprentices coming in.
Yeah.
And they were great at doing electrical related stuff. But when it came to automation or programming, they were lacking. And then they would get overwhelmed. So as soon as they got overwhelmed, some would quit. And the ones that didn't quit, I would spend a lot of time training them, sometimes 4 or 5 months. And then after 5 months, they would decide, this isn't for me. So you can imagine the amount of time you're wasting per person training them up to a point, and then they go, this isn't for me. But what if you have organized training specifically to HVAC, lighting controls? So when they come into work with me or for me, they have a bit more experience in the field. So it's not as much of a huge learning curve.
Right.
So that's why I went to the training center. I respected what we already did here at the IBW. I just said, hey, why are we not looking at automation? And when the opportunity came, I was working there 3 years part-time, just doing that. They would bring curriculum from the NJTC. I would review with them. You might want to call a subject matter expert. And by no means was I expert, but if I did know, I would answer. If I didn't know, I would take it to someone that was an expert in our company, and I would bring that info back. Since then, we sourced out a great automated lighting course from California that we brought up and Canadianized. We have a electrical vehicle infrastructure training program, which is, has programming attached to it. We have solar training, fire alarm training. So it's a lot of things that are a bit automated, if you want to call it that. It requires more than just pulling a wire and connecting it. It requires a bit of programming, right?
So is that something that somebody is required to take upon themselves to learn, or is it mandated typically by an organization or the union to get training done?
For our local, and every local could be a bit different. For our local, once you get your journey ticket, it is up to you if you want to take further courses, okay? It's no one can make you. I mean, the companies can ask you. So what we do is we have thousands of members who are qualified, usually about 2,000 members that are qualified under that our collective agreement. We send the mail out. We have our quarterly courses, and if they choose to take it, they can take it. Or for our members, the courses only cost $78. These same courses could cost $1,200 to open shop. It's subsidized basically. Depending on the course, some courses will fill up and have a wait list. Some you see it really busy at first and then kind of plateaus. Solar was one of those courses. There used to be a time where we had 15 people in a waiting list for solar. Well, it's not there anymore. So we might take it out for a while and bring it back later on, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can see that. It seems like solar kind of had its it was all fancy and sexy for a little while there. And although it's still a thing, it's not as talked about anymore as it once was. I'm sure it's just kind of more mainstream than it was in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, like the province of BC is really looking at electrification of everything plans. I really think green energy is the way to go. I mean, but in BC in general, we're fairly green with the hydro.
Yeah.
I would like to see solar, wind, everything else come in eventually. Even if you don't have the work per se, but to get everyone with the workforce ready for the future,
Hmm.
because in my opinion, that's the future, but we'll have to wait and see, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Technology has
Yeah,
to get there for sure.
yeah, for sure.
So the last person that I had on the podcast, which is going to air just before this one, was a female carpenter apprentice from Windsor, Ontario. And she talked about the apprenticeship program and how people can get into it out here in Ontario. So what does it look like in BC? And I believe that you guys also require your apprentices to put in an extra 1,800 hours, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the 1,800 hours was part of our collective agreement. And when I joined, I remember I told you I came from open shop. I was a year and a half into my apprenticeship. It was
Right.
a shock for me when I joined in. What? I thought I'll be done in 4, now I'll be done in 5. But once you start understanding the reasoning behind it, our 4th-year apprentice makes more money than a journeyman open shop. So financially, it shouldn't be a major issue. But it also gives you 1 extra year to really get as much knowledge as you can. Because once you get that ticket, I mean, to me, that's when you really start learning. But at least, it gives you that 1 extra year to really take as much as you can from everyone you're working with to be a bit more confident. So that's that extra 1,800 hours. Now, granted, if you do take our pre-apprenticeship course, we will give you 900 hours towards that 1,800.
Okay.
That's something that people will know. The way to get an apprenticeship with our local, I mean, there's many ways. The number one way by ITA, Industry Training Authority, the first way is you get someone to sponsor you, and then you can sign up for year 1, 2, 3, and 4. For us, we prefer you take the foundation course. It's a 25-week program, 15 weeks in the classroom and in the shop, and 10 weeks of guaranteed work experience. Now, I don't like to use the word guaranteed. We'll call it 10 weeks of paid work experience.
Okay.
It's with our contractors. What that does is you come in, take the program, half your class time is in the shop. You learn how to bend conduit, pull wires, circuitry. Actually, but Colin, by the end, they wire up a whole condo. You're an electrician. I don't know if you remember your first couple of years. It is really neat to be able to walk out after 15 weeks and have an idea how to wire up a house. Even if you don't fully understand it, but I did a bathroom, a kitchen, a hallway, I did a panel.
Yeah.
So they do all that. Then they get 10 weeks of pay experience with one of our best contractors in BC, any of our union contractors. They come back, if they pass the course, which most do, and if they have a good feedback by the contractor, if they still want to be part of the trades, then we hire them on as an apprentice into the union. Right now, we say have a 90% success rate. What that means is if you start your foundation with the EJTC, 90% of those individuals finish their full apprenticeship in 4 or 5 years. That is amazing. Like, it's kind of unheard of. Most unions do that well, but usually unheard of.
Do you know what the statistics are for non-union training?
I won't name. I've heard certain private colleges that offer level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, they have a 17% success rate by the time their students finish and actually get challenge the IP.
Interesting. And the only reason I ask is not to throw anybody under the bus or anything. It's just simply because, it was tough. Like there was times, and people may think going to trade school is easy, but as an electrician, like I remember actually having to put in some serious studying for the math side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't that easy for everybody. So I could see why that extra bit of training and a well-structured process that's been battle tested by your organization is really going to help. The process is structured in a way to get everybody in and out in a more effective way.
Absolutely. And another thing that we have, Colin, for our program, we have a prerequisite. We have 3 prerequisites: English 12, math 11, and physics 11. And the idea behind that was if you have the fundamentals of those, then you will succeed through your apprenticeship with little to no challenges. If you don't have those, we still provide you with information where you can get your upgrading. It's usually free through your school district anyway.
Right.
But the idea is to help you succeed. We don't want to put you into an apprenticeship. Like you said, it's very challenging. If anyone says it isn't, you got to either be brilliant or you haven't really been there. It is challenging. You're trying to learn, I don't know, I would say 12 weeks worth of curriculum in 10 weeks in our area. I know Ontario is a bit different.
Yeah.
But it's quite a bit. You're busy the whole time. And if you're not studying, you'll fall behind quickly. So if you have already problems with math foundations, you're definitely going to fall behind. So that's why we have the prerequisites for our pre-apprenticeship and find it to be fairly successful that way.
Very cool. I like that a lot. That's awesome. When you started with an open shop, did you go to school first or did you go straight to work?
So you got to understand, my family, they immigrated here, so they knew nothing about unions. They
Yeah.
really didn't. I knew nothing about unions. They also didn't really know about training trades in general. And unfortunately, where I came from, at least for my family, trades was not like a profession that they would have looked at as a positive thing in my life. So it was quite a challenge even leaving the university to do that. So as my dad is an engineer, he was working at a company. I reached out to his general foreman at his company, and he's the one who hired me. And my dad didn't know all summer I was working there. So I got in, and I didn't really know what open shop union was, and they just basically hired me as an apprentice. And so I hadn't done pre-apprenticeship. And I tell everyone my own personal experience, I knew nothing till I was in the second year. I actually only learned a bit more about circuitry and electrical once I went in there and did some side jobs. Because you got to imagine, when you go on the job site as a brand new apprentice, especially at a small company, they're going to use you to do a lot of small, unrelated electrical tasks.
Yeah.
So you could get stuck doing a lot of dirty work, whatever that may be, and you won't really get that actual electrical experience. Yeah, you might bend pipe and get great at it, but then somebody tells you, hey, can you do a 4-way switch, 3-way switch, and you have no idea how to do it. So when I see our crew here, our apprentices here, and our instructors, my colleagues, they're brilliant, and we talk about it. It's amazing what they get exposed to if they're actually just stepping back and saying, wow, okay, I got to take this all in. When they leave, they know enough that I knew by the time I was second or third. I would confidently say that. Only because we basically focus our training on what they really need to know in order to go out there and be productive and confident. Because you don't want to send someone out there and they're not confident in their ability, so they're not asking questions, they're making mistakes. Mistakes can potentially hurt them, hurt someone else, and productivity goes to crap, quality goes to crap. You know what I mean? So pre-apprenticeship is definitely a way to go, not only for the apprentice, but for the unions and the contractors. It's definitely great.
Yeah. You know what? I took a pre-apprenticeship program as well, but I could safely say roughly the same thing as you was I didn't really know what was going on until my second year. And still to this day, 14 years later in the trade, I'm learning stuff every single day that I had no clue.
Yes, same here.
Like even today, I learned things that I had never seen in my entire life. And people are talking to me and I'm like, today I was using voltage drop calculations and I was calculating pipe fill and all this stuff. And I was just thinking like, man, I was so fortunate to have like a great education, but it's really taken me 14 years to use like a wide variety of the skills. And it can be tough and discouraging in the first couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think this is where mentoring comes in really handy. I think you and I briefly talk about mentoring, but for apprentices, if you go out there and ask people that have been in the trade, hey, you've done this for 20 years, you mind teaching me something? If you actually be direct, I don't know a lot of people that have turned me down. If they have the time, they'll mentor you. They can really clear that path. It's like a video game where you got that map where it's all black, and the more, you play the game, the map clears out and you see more. When I went through my apprenticeship, again, naive, young, and I don't know a lot of that. I was doing it on my own. I was learning and making mistakes, and it took a while before I learned, hey, I should just ask Colin, hey, Colin, can you be my mentor? I wouldn't even say that. Can you be my mentor? Can you teach me something? And most people would be like, whoa, yeah, sure, why not? Like, I want to teach you what I know. And it really makes your apprenticeship that much better. It gives you that fulfillment that instead of learning it in 10 years, you can get it in 5 years. And yeah, it gives you better opportunities.
Yeah, you know what I also think with mentorship and with taking the initiative to either bring somebody under your wing if you are the more skilled one in the scenario, or if it's the opposite way as the apprentice, is one of the problems I notice in terms of the disconnect. And there's all sorts of terrible meme accounts on social media that just completely trash apprentices. And I don't think it's fair because I think honestly, if you were to open your mouth and ask the question when you don't know something so that you get it right the first time, it would mitigate a lot of the challenges that apprentices face. But the issue is sometimes the working environment is too intimidating to ask the question, and you can't be vulnerable enough in front of your journey person to ask the question and say, look, I actually don't know what that connector is you're telling me to get. If I go to the van right now or the truck, I'm going to get the wrong thing. Can you tell me what it looks like, or can you show me? And I think that that's important to call out there, is like, you have to feel comfortable doing it. And like you mentioned, it's the same with me. I've probably been the most successful through periods of my life where I had somebody teaching me. Even right now, I have a great mentor that I work with on a daily basis. So I think for anybody listening, if you are in that position where you're feeling stuck, like you just have to speak up and you'll be surprised at what you'll get in return.
Absolutely. Can I add something to that? I feel
Yeah.
like when I hear that scenario that you tell me, which is 100% true, the foreman, the journey person, the apprentice, the person who's losing the most in a situation where the apprentice is not asking questions, and to me, is that leader. Because if you're using those memes per se, or if you're creating a toxic environment where people are not, you're not approachable, in the end, it's your crew. They're only going to put in there as much as you put into them. So if you're running them by your position and yelling and screaming, yeah, I'm sure they'll work hard for you in that moment. But as soon as you step away, I don't know about you, but I'll be slacking. I had enough of this person. They just belittle me all the time.
Yeah.
But if you start seeing yourself as a machine, as seeing your apprentices as part of that machine, as a crew, and be approachable and give them that respect that you also want from them, people naturally step up to the plate. They always do. You just got to give them that opportunity. And you can't assume they know everything. I mean, you and I both agree that we did in our first 2 years, and we're still learning today, right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
So yeah, to me, whenever I see those memes and when I hear it, is I feel like that leader is actually missing out. It is you that's losing something, not that apprentice. That apprentice, you might lay him off and go somewhere else. Somebody else will take him on, and they'll go through their apprenticeship. But you as a person, you got to build that crew, you got to build that team, and hopefully leave a legacy behind, either for that job or as a whole in your career. It's really important.
Yeah, and the industry's super small. If you're that guy that
Yeah.
that's doing that, man, and you have to transition from company or to another job, you may not get the treatment that you think you deserve. So be careful. Be careful.
That's true. That's why I'm coming to Toronto next, right? So I burn my bridges here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, where do you see training evolving over the years as we progress into more technology and things start changing? And there's just so much is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Where do you see training going?
So there's a couple of things, and I'll talk on our industry, right? Electrical.
Yeah.
I would like to see some more training on green initiatives, green energy. We talk about solar, wind, geothermal, what have you, anything that has to do with electrification, everything. I would love to see some practical training on that, and add some practical research on it. I don't even think that's been done properly. For the amount of time you put in, what do you get out of it, and how much training is required, and that's what, so on and so forth. The other thing, because of COVID, we're obviously seeing some of us going online, right? We've taken our apprentices online. I have to be honest, online will never replace face to face, especially in our apprenticeship. You think about pre-apprenticeship, half of that is hands-on. The online portion, I get it. You can put the curriculum online and make sure you have a learning management system. But how are you going to make sure those apprentices are still going to get their hands-on, pipe bending, the feel for it and wire? I think that's where blended learning is going to come in. You might see more blended learning down the future where you do part of your apprenticeship online, but then you'll come into a training center and do the hands-on portion, the motor control part of it, or
Right.
fire alarm, what have you, right? I think that's something that might happen, and we're already doing that. We've been using Zoom, and we have a learning management system that we use through NJTC. It's been great. So we're getting great feedback from students. I want to say that first and foremost. But the other feedback we're getting is that they're not confident. They want to go on the job site knowing that they can pipe, and you can't do that online. We have a great, wonderful 3D software that they tried, but it's not the same. You've been there. You got to get that feel for it.
There's 3D software for pipe bending? No way.
Yeah, man. We got a 3D software for wiring up a transformer, and it's so much fun. You do it wrong, and you watch the avatar explode. And so it's neat. Like the transformer one, I get. It's great practice because you can really understand the fundamentals of it. But when it comes to actual hands-on experience of, again, pipe bending or
Yeah.
using cancher, you really need to get that feel for it. So I think training, if it evolves to more online platform in technical training, there has to be a blended format where you still get your hands-on experience.
Yeah. You know what? Something like pipe bending or conduit bending in my eyes is, if anybody is in the field, they could probably recognize this themselves, but it's an art form. Like you get the feel for the bender in your hand. You get the feel for when that 90 or that offset or whatever you're bending into that pipe is off, and you know how to tweak it over your knee. And then you put it up and everything's in a line, and it's so sexy. And you look back, you're like, man, I did that. But I think every trade has that aspect to it. It's like you're literally building something with your hands, putting it up, and you get to look back and see what you did. And you're right. You have to have that feel for it. And you'll just never develop the passion for something if you're doing it virtually. Like you have to do it with the bender in your hand or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
I do. Pipe bending, now that we're stuck on that topic, it's funny because it's like a project. You're a project manager, am I correct?
Yeah.
The meaning of a project is something that's has a beginning and has an end.
Hmm.
So when you think about that, to have something like that every day, when you're bending pipe and you get to look at the ceiling and there's nothing there, you can have a vision of what you're going to do and you can actually finish it. And as an end product, is quite satisfying at the end. It's kind of neat. It's a short-term satisfying task. I started something, I finished it. It was all me. I planned it in my head. On the print, it doesn't really tell you how to run it.
No.
You're gonna look at it, figure it out. Anyway, I love pipe bending.
Yeah, man.
The coupler king right on my hard hat for all the couplers I used to use, but that's okay.
So when we started this podcast off, we mentioned that we're dealing with this skilled trade shortage and maybe in some industries over others, but what do you think we can do as a construction community in general to help influence the younger generation to get more interested in skilled trades?
I think we got to change the culture, and we're doing it. I mean, I don't know how well it is, but we're doing it. But we need to change the culture. First, we got to be more inclusive. There's 50% of the population of women that we haven't really respected and made it, welcoming for them to join the trade. And we're trying that now for the first time, not just talking about it, but we're doing different things. But other than that, once these younger individuals come in, we got to treat them differently. We got to engage them more. One of the ones I tell people is I got 2 phones. I commonly use my phones, like most people, to Google random things. If you and I get in a debate about who won the 93 Stanley Cup, if you don't remember, you'll jump in and Google it, right?
Right.
Now you get these apprentices who are my age, even I'm 36 or younger, they go in on the job site, rightfully so, and I'll repeat that, rightfully so, can't use their phones for safety. But then when they're doing a task and they ask a question, why am I doing this? We tell them to shut up. Just do it. Just shut up and do it. And we don't really give them a big picture. We don't involve them in anything. I think that turns people off. They get bored. Like, why am I in this thing? Or why am I just here to put a plug on this wall that I don't really understand what it connects to? I get bored. I'm in the age of information and they're telling me work 8 hours or 10 hours and don't ask questions. If you start involving people, if you start change our culture for the positive, if you treat it like it's a profession, and be inclusive and welcoming, I think you're going to notice the changes because we get paid really well. We don't have huge debt when it goes to school. If you're not a huge fan of spending a whole lot of time in school, well, think about it. The trade's great. You work every 10 months that you work for, I think it is, or 42 weeks you work for it, you go to school for 10 weeks in electrical and you do that 4 times. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it gives you more opportunities. Like once you get your ticket, you can become an inspector, become a contractor, work in the union. Go get a second trade. With your Red Seal, you can travel almost anywhere around the world, and you'll find a job somewhere. And they respect the Canadian Red Seal anywhere. So I think if we change our culture, be more inclusive, we'll see more people coming this way.
I totally agree 100%. That's a great way to put it. Why do you love construction so much? Like you mentioned earlier that you were going to university and then behind your parents' back, you kind of decided that you wanted to get into trades. Like what influenced that decision and why, looking back on it, do you love construction?
At the time, I don't think I knew I was smart enough or understood enough to say I like or I love construction.
Yeah.
I just was trying to figure out at the time, what am I going to do in my life? Because I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. I was doing general sciences at the time. I just didn't really know where I was going to go with it. Why do I like construction now? For me, outside of the fact that it's a project, that whole saying you probably heard 1,000 times. You drive somewhere, you say, "Oh, I was part of that. I get it now because I do." And my wife gets super annoyed, and I think about it. It's kind of neat because it'll be there way before after I'm gone.
Yeah.
Way after I'm gone, and it's kind of neat. Another part of it for me, now that why I love construction, being that I'm part of it, I see all the people I worked with when I first started my apprenticeship, when I got my ticket, and they were my apprentices, and I see where they are now. And like you said, it's such a small world, and how we're all intertwined, and how well they're doing. It's my own network. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, I don't know anything else better. So I mean, I'm sure a physiotherapist would just say the same thing, similar. So I have this connection, this network, and I watched all these people grow in different ways, and they're doing great things, and I get to be part of that too. So that's exciting. I love it, and it never ends. Like I said, there's so many different angles to it. There's so many different things you can do with it that is really neat. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And it's really easy to pivot, like you mentioned. And even though other people may say that their industry has the same network capabilities and you're watching your peers grow, it's just important to also note that many people think construction may not be like that. And it is just like everything else. The only difference is you're outside working with your hands a large portion of the time. But like you mentioned, it doesn't end there. Like you and I both work with our hands in the field. Now I'm a project manager with a podcast, and you're doing training, and you're working in an office, and I'm wearing a button-up shirt, and you're wearing you're wearing a polo. Like you can take it however you want to.
Yeah, it gives you option.
The field is where it can start, but it can really end. Like you could become a CEO if you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. It's endless. It's endless. And like my brother, still in the field, he loves it and he wants to stay there. Great. Like he's going to do that and he's going to become foreman somewhere. He's going to do well. And I compare it to the RCMP. I got a lot of great friends that are in the RCMP. And one thing that's great about the RCMP is that it's got a lot of branches. So you never get bored. You can always move from one branch to another. You want to work federal, you want to work provincial or municipal, or whatever you want to do. There's so many different options. It's the same way in the trades. Like first, when you come in, you think it's just a red seal. I got to get my red seal and it's done.
Yeah.
But as you go along and you start watching, like you said, project managers and so many other positions, it gives you that opportunity. So if you're like me and you get bored, there's lots of stuff. There's lots of options for you there.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to build on that one more time is like, you can pivot within the industry and you don't have to sacrifice pay. You don't have to sacrifice a lower position because you're bringing your knowledge with you and into another area where you can further build on that base of knowledge and expand on it. And I think that's such an awesome part of it as well.
Yeah, man. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So one of the ways I like to end these podcasts with, and sometimes it's hard for people to think of a good story, but when I think construction story, I think there's so much job site banter and funny antics and people getting pranked and things that happen in construction that don't happen anywhere else. Does anything like that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's many. Like for me, it was the connections after. The one that came to my mind afterwards is, again, people I worked with that randomly call you out of nowhere to catch up with you and doing great things. And I mean, the banter we had. But yeah, for sure. There's a lot of great things for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that there's a lot more to get in depth here, and I'd love to catch up again and continue to build on this series and have more conversations around training. But is there anything else that you want to leave the industry behind with, or anybody listening? And just bear in mind that with the Toolbox Talks, I'm trying to approach and deliver my content to a larger audience. So that's including apprentices as well as stakeholders and business owners. So is there anything that you want to leave behind for them to think about?
If there's apprentices listening to this, I want to tell them to be proactive in their learning. Don't stop. Just don't look at your technical training and think that's the only thing I got to look forward to. Find other things to educate yourself on. It doesn't end with what the plan is for you. You can make your own plan.
Yeah.
For everyone else, I don't know, let's keep making this industry a great industry to be in. I mean, the fact that I connected with you, it's exciting, and let's keep connecting and coming up with creative ways to be the best that we are. In my opinion, the Red Seal is probably the best ticket in the world on this planet. So let's make it even better. That's it. Yeah. That's my 2 cents. Yeah.
There we go. And I guess quickly, we're getting on a call tomorrow with a bunch of people in the industry, and we're going to be trying to put together a roundtable discussion on all sorts of topics related to construction, apprenticeship, diversity, COVID. And I think that we're going to nail down some of that conversation tomorrow. But for anybody listening, I think we may be displaying it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, we can use our Facebook Live to go on there. Not a problem. It's the EJTC Facebook page. So once we plan the details of that, absolutely. We'll use the EJTC Facebook page and we'll go live from there.
Okay.
We have fairly good access, so that'll be neat.
Awesome. So for anybody listening to this, that's hearing this and looking to look out for that roundtable discussion, you can head over to toolspodcast.com/May, as in the month of May. And this episode will be posted live there, and as well as a link and more information to that as it materializes. And you can also follow myself on Instagram. And where can people get in touch with you?
The EJTC, if you go to www.ejtc.org or apply.ejtc.org, you'll find all of our information, and you can definitely find my email and my phone number there. So if you have any questions regarding apprenticeship or electrical training, definitely give me a call. I'll tell you what I know. Or mentorship. Mentorship is my favorite thing to talk about. So if there's anything, if you want to know about formalized mentorship programs and what we've been doing across Canada and the United States, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Awesome, Farid, man. It's been so much fun. We'll definitely be catching up a lot more in the future. I know it. And we'll definitely come back for a round 2. But thanks for coming on, man. I really had fun.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This has been really fun.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Tools of the Trade podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. For show notes, blog posts, resources, and access to our newsletter, check out toolspodcast.com.